Good morning.
Good morning. Hello, everybody. I want to welcome you to the first podcast of the Don and Dan Show. This is going to be a continuous thing. We're going to be talking about current politics, special events, things that are going on, and we're bringing Don Postles back because he's missed so much in the Buffalo area. Don?
Dan, thank you. You know, after 52 years in television, this is my first podcast, and it's kind of unique and interesting to see the technical end of it, as we've been sitting here chomping at the bit to talk about issues that are very, very important to people here in Western New York. Dan, I think the exciting thing about you and why I'm excited about your campaign is you're a very unique person. You're a very successful businessman. And I think you should tell the people out there who you are and what you're all about.
I'm going to do that, but I want everybody to know this, that I told Don to go and look at Joe Rogan. So now we're gonna have a Joe Rogan type style here, so we could do that
Without the F-bombs.
without the F-bombs. But I appreciate that, Don. You know, I have a really good business, and I've got a great family. I got my wife and my children that are involved, and I got a great management staff, and they take care of it. As a matter of fact, they bought me golf clubs for Christmas.
And they want to make sure you have fun.
They're like, go on, Dad, go to pasture and go do what you have to do, right? So anyways, then all of a sudden we were out to dinner and talking, politics came up, and my friend said to me, hey, why don't you run? And I said, oh yeah, forget about that. What does that mean? And the next morning my wife came up to me and said to me, she goes, I gotta talk to you. And she says, you have to run. And I said, for what? And she said, I think you need to run for supervisor. So with the support of my wife and thinking about it quite a bit, we decided that it was time to do that. And the background, you know, and my background is, you know, you don't realize that when you look at your background, that it led you here. It led me here. So
many people don't realize that you've pounded the pavement, gone to over 3,800 homes in Amherst, telling people who you are. I know there was a gentleman on Ruskin Drive who even invited you in for breakfast. You're meeting a lot of people. You're shaking a lot of hands, and you're telling them who you are and what you stand for.
That's very true. I will tell you this. There is no, if you want this job, you need to go and talk to as many people as possible, because what you read in the papers, what you see, not until you see these people and really experience it. I was at a woman's home yesterday, and in the front of her house, she had a sidewalk issue. Her sidewalk was lifting. So we started talking about it because it was really bad. So she tells me that the town told her that because the tree was on the other side, which is the town tree, that she was not allowed to take that tree. She couldn't cut the tree.
Right.
But she was responsible to do that. So until you go out and talk to the people and realize that we're making people responsible for our trees and they won't let you do that, you really get a great insight as to what's really happening out there. And it's not on social media, it's not in the papers, it's talking to the people.
Well, I think that's a prime example of the town and the administration just not being receptive to be there to help the residents instead of hindering the residents. I had the same problem on my street. Pat Lucy Sr. put in elm trees. They're big. You have to worry about the Dutch elm disease, and they come around and they tap the trees to protect them, but then those trees, as they grow, they lift the sidewalk. It shifts. And you, as the homeowner, are responsible for that sidewalk, even though it was the town's tree that pitched it.
That's right. And I don't. And there's a lot I'm learning. There's a lot I'm learning about what is actually happening out there. I was at a Cretan Street. And all of a sudden I'm like, the smell from the wastewater treatment plant.
That's a problem.
It is, and the problem is that nobody's talking about these things.
And it's an expensive problem.
Exactly.
That's why they're not talking about it.
That's right.
You know.
And we need a new wastewater treatment. This is what we should be fighting for. We've got a governor who is from this area. We need to tell him that we need this. These are the things that we need to be doing. So you know what I'm saying? So that's the kind of stuff that we need to be doing. Those are the issues that we need to be fighting for.
There seems to be a real lack of transparency with the current town board. I've covered through the years many town supervisors, many board meetings, and a resident will stand up with a concern and tell the board, and they'll say, well, thank you very much for coming to the meeting, and they don't address the problem.
Well, our first of all, our setup. They give you 3 minutes to talk. That's it. And then they don't respect you. Well, and when we talk about transparency, let's just take Westwood, for instance. They do a press conference. They come out and say they've been talking about it for a year. They're talking to who? They're not talking to the Fairways group who spend thousands of dollars to stop musical fair, but you're not talking to them and asking them these questions.
Well, Dan, that's a very good point. I'd like to talk about Westwood from a personal standpoint and from a professional standpoint, in which I played at one of the last years with Bob Davis, who's chairman of the Amherst Republican Party, but he was the Erie County chairman at the time, with a guy who worked at Lawley Insurance, and Rene Robert from the Buffalo Sabres. And Rene Robert has a very, very bad back. But if we got the ball on the green, he could sink any putt you wanted. Okay, we won the tournament. It was the opening day for Westwood that year. My point is this. It's not a Brookfield, it's not a Niagara Falls Country Club, it's not a Park Country Club, it's not CCB, but it is a darn good course. And we have this lousy course called Audubon over there. And what they did was the developers bought it from the members for $2.5 million, and the town of Amherst sat on it for 5 years and then agreed to pay over $7.5 million to the developers who did nothing but sat on that land. In October, I was on the 16th floor of the Rath Building with Mark Pollenkars, and he said to me the 11.4% tax increase was political suicide. But Brian Koppel didn't have to worry about it because he couldn't run again for re-election because of term limits. He also said to me, he says, in the springtime, we're going to announce that the county will be taking over Westwood. We're going to make it a 9-hole course. As you know, Koppel wanted to put in musical fair. Why should the taxpayers in the town of Amherst pay for all the expenses of musical fair where people in all the towns and villages of Western New York can benefit from it? It was a misconceived idea to begin with. So anyway, here we are with Westwood, now going to be taken over by the county. No vote taken by the referendum by the taxpayers of Western New York. And I think you should be saluted. What you did is you turned to the Jack Nicklaus Company to come in and take a look at Westwood and tell us what we have. It's a hidden gem, and you found that out.
Well, and to that point, after the press conference, I came out and said, I don't think that you should be doing this. We contact Nicholas. I sent a letter. I sent the insurances. The county, the town said no.
We're not going to
let us in there. Yeah. So now, in my opinion, why don't we listen to? If we listen to the residents from day one, we wouldn't have spent the $7.8 million and all the money for the studies. We would have done exactly what it is. It's a golf course. But why are we putting a passive park there? Why don't we just take the 18-hole golf, make it an 18-hole golf course
for the town?
For the town. And then we'll talk about giving them Audubon if they want, or selling Audubon to get some of the money recouped back for what we've done. I don't understand. This is a lack of, number one, transparency, talking to people. Number two, a lack of business acumen that they don't understand. Why would I give up something that's an asset to this town and give up home rule? Why would I do it? It doesn't make sense. And what you said about being not the highest end, but it's a good end. Do you know this is a Willie Parks? This is a Willie Parks golf course. Yeah. Do you know that Willie Parks was one of the biggest designers back then? And if the Nicholas Group was able to come in and do that, it would be the first Nicholas and Willie Parks golf course that they would have. You don't think that we're going to want to play that? You don't think that we can benefit from this? We make $300,000 a year profit at Audubon. So what are you going to do if you give this to the county? We're going to lose money. I'm not willing to lose money. We're wasting money on $34 million lights and $11 million parks. Instead, they have $3.7 million already allocated for Westwood. Let's use that $3.7 million to put it as an 18-hole golf course, give it to the town, and we'll talk about Audubon. That's what we should be doing.
Yeah, and plus the clubhouse, which is beautiful, can be used as a town facility for banquets and graduation parties, weddings. I'm not saying it's not going to be a lost leader, but what a nice benefit. I mean, we're not talking about like Bethpage down on Long Island, but we would have the best town golf course in all of Western New York.
And let me say this to you too. One thing that Mark Pollenkars said for his press conference, it's not in bad shape. The building is not in bad shape. So now we know that it's been preserved well. Now we should be going in there, and now we should be making these types of decisions, not in a vacuum. Let's find out what we have. Let's find out if anybody's interested. If not, we can always go back to the county and do this. But they're not even doing that. They're just willing to sign the papers. And I don't agree with it.
And neither do most of the residents will tell you, this is where Compa has really dropped the ball. Not just on Westwood, but that's a prime example of how the town is over their head and what they're doing. You had the foresight to bring in the Jack Nicklaus Company, which I think is a brilliant idea. They're all over the world, and they know a good golf course from a bad golf course. If you got a problem, they can identify it. The potential is there, and when they put in these night leagues, Monday night, Tuesday night, ladies night on Thursday night, Friday night couples golf, you get a lot of people playing.
Sure.
Not everyone belongs to a private country club.
Well, and we can take this one step further. Let's go to Boulevard Mall. So Doug Jamal said to me that he didn't approach the town. The town approached him. So now you have this big monolith, you have this huge place. They come in with all these big grand ideas, and all of a sudden they're talking about eminent domain to take out JCPenney and Firestone. What they didn't realize, and if they had business savvy, they would have figured, not only do you have to buy them out, you have to buy the building, but you also have to give them revenue that they're going to lose.
Really?
Oh, yes.
I did not know that.
Oh, yeah. So now they have to do all this. The reason why they can't finish it is because they can't go and bond any more money to do that. And we're not developers. We're to the town. And what we should be doing is we should be talking to the developers, talking to the residents, getting them all in the thing and say, we'd like to do this. What do you think? Get consensus, build it. Don, that is what this job is about. It's about consensus. If you can't build a consensus with the residents, with the developers, with the IDA, well, all of these places, that's what you're supposed to be doing. But you got to be out front of it.
Well, I give credit to the town board for reaching out to Doug Jamal. When I was in the newsroom, we used to joke that all the buildings he was buying in Buffalo, that we're going to change the name of the town to Jamalville. I mean, the guy's been a savior.
Right.
And
right.
He's an outsider who sees a diamond in the rough and is doing all these projects. But there's a major problem with the Boulevard Mall. They need a new sewer district and all that. And there's no momentum in this town. It's just stagnation.
Mm-hmm. And I also think that, but let's talk about this job itself as a supervisor. This is not a part-time job. This is a full-time job. You can't go in there thinking. I tell my wife this all the time. Should I be fortunate enough to win in November? This is going to be hard. And what it's going to require for us to do, it's going to require for us to get good people with us as a team, going in there every single day, letting the residents know where we are, letting the departments know where we are. And this is a process of getting better. So we have to draw the line in the sand, say we're going to make this better. We have to make decisions that are going to make this town a better place. This is not something for the faint of heart. You got to be able to do it.
Well, you're taking over a dinosaur in a way that has a huge, what would you say, something around its neck of a $200 million deficit?
That's right. Right now, think about that. Over the time that Brian's been there, it went from $112 million to $196 million in debt. My grandchildren we will pay back $500 million in interest payments and the original amount.
So what do you do? How do you start cutting?
Well, what we have to do is we have to look at we have to look at the planning. What has to be done in the districts? Is the sewers right? We have to make sure the residents are in a good place. We have to take care of those things first. And if that means not building a certain thing because we have to wait, then we wait. Because you can run government like a business. You can do this. The only difference is the outcome. The outcome is businesses look for profit and government looks to serve the people. That's what we have to do. So when you ask how we save money, we find out what the necessary things to do, and we do them. We don't spend frivolous money like $34 million on lights, and we don't do parks. What we do is we wait and we bond money for the things that are necessary. Then what we do is we look and we find out like the assessments that we had. Think about this for 1 second. Everybody got 100% assessments.
Full value.
Full values. And what was supposed to happen was a third was supposed to go up, a third was supposed to stay the same, and a third was supposed to come down.
What happened?
Well, we did. But you know where the third came down? Businesses. Home Depot on Niagara Falls Boulevard went from $14 million in assessment to $12 million.
Really?
Yes. And think about this. Let's go one step further. Last year, the Article 7s that were done, that were won.
What's Article 7?
Article 7 to reduce your assessments. Okay? $230 million were assessment reductions. Do you know who pays for that?
The taxpayer.
Because it's evenly distributed. So they got to make their $230 million. So now what happens is, okay, everybody does that. Has anybody ever looked at possibly making the businesses pay a little bit more money? It's the same rate. Has anybody looked at any of this? What about renegotiating the bond interests when they were down lower? You can do that. Did they do that? Who knows? I don't understand how they don't have profit and loss statements every month to see whether they've hit their expenses and their revenues. I've never seen one on any town board agenda.
I have not either.
So these, as a business person, you can't live and you can't survive without doing it this way.
My brother is a doctor in South Carolina. He came up and he saw my house and he says, "What are your taxes here?" I said, 9. He goes, "Well, 900's not bad." I said, No, 9,000. And he says, "Why are you in New York State?"
That's right. That's right. And that's the issue. We cannot just assume that we're going to raise taxes to pay for frivolous spending. We just can't do that. We have to look at in innovative ways. Now, look, I am sure that we can find 12% difference, because what I'm going to do, 5% reduction in tax right off the bat. And I'm going to let everybody know that, and I'm going to tell them. Now I'm going to go to all the departments and say, together, we're going to find out how we can save the money to maybe be able to do that. Because this is how important it is for us to do these things. Where's the urgency, Don? Where's anybody doing this?
Well, that's a good point. And I don't think the residents realize when they get their tax bill, it's not the Erie County tax portion that's high. It's the town of Amherst tax that is really high, and plus the school.
That's right.
The school taxes are extremely high, and I think Albany's got to find a way to fund our schools without just relying on the property tax. I know they get state aid, but I mean, everybody wants their children and grandchildren to have a great education. You want to provide for them, but at what cost? And Jimmy Griffin used to say to Gene Revelle, you spend money like a drunken sailor in the Buffalo School Board. The problem is it's very expensive nowadays to educate a child, but it doesn't have to be that expensive to provide a secure environment for residents. What I mean by that is that if you talk to people, what everyone wants to know, and I'm proud to know that we're one of the safest towns in America, which is true, and we want to know that we have good police and fire protection and garbage pickup and snow plowing in the wintertime. Other than that, I mean, yeah, occasionally I might take a grandkid to the library, but there's a lot of amenities that we might not need.
Right, and let's look at it this way. I want to go in and I want to look at every contract that we have. Do you know that people pay $1 a year for buildings that we own? How is that possible? I heard that UB pays $1 for parking on a lot that we have. $1. UB?
For a year.
For a year. These are things that, and again, remember, I'm an outsider looking in. They give you the information they want to give to you. You have to FOIL all these requests to get the information. And in my opinion,
make sure that people know what FOIL is. Freedom of Information Act.
That's right.
You FOIL, and they're required to give you an answer.
Exactly. So now we have to FOIL all that information to get that back. Now, here's the problem. I don't believe it should be that hard. If you give the information, we're going to revamp that entire system. People are going to know out front. We're going to revamp the website. We're going to do all that stuff because I want people to know what we're doing. If you're not doing anything that's suspicious or questionable, you should not have to worry about giving them the information. I don't think, and I won't say anything disparaging about the people that are in there. I just don't think they have the business acumen to do this job. And that is my biggest issue. Brian Koppel's been there for 8 years. Sean Lavin has been with him for 8 years. He has voted yes to everything that they have brought,
including the 11.4%
exactly
tax
right.
increase.
So here's my point: you're going to get the same thing from this man, who's going to be running in November. I believe that we need a change of how we run business, how we run government. And look, own a business. you'll see how you can't spend money that you don't have. You'll understand pretty quick.
In a hurry.
In a hurry. And in my background, from government to corporate America to owning my own business or sitting on the board of Independent Health, the issues have been very, very clear. You cannot survive by wasting money. You can't do it. So all this means is getting tight and knowing what we're doing and letting everybody know what we do.
When I was in Mark Polenkar's office on the 16th floor of the Rath building back in the fall, he looked at me and he says, 11.4% tax increase, that is political suicide. But for Brian, since he can't run for re-election, and the entire board voted for it.
Right.
The taxpayer, screw him.
But how about if I tell you, I think it's because they had no choice. They did it because they spent too much money. So if they would have done this, and they would have done it in a proper way, because you're not supposed to go past 2%. If they would have done it a proper way, things would have been different. But the problem is they spend too much money. And now, this coming administration is going to have to fix that problem. And the only way to do that is to tighten our belts, figure out what's going on, save ourselves some money, and do the things that we need to do.
I hope you have a big mop, because there's going to be a lot of mopping up to do when you get there. No doubt about it. I think in many, many ways we have so much going for us, but it's a lack of leadership. Look at Station 12 on Sheridan Drive. How many years has that land sat vacant? Nothing going on.
Well, it's interesting. I was on Hardline, and Lavin was on it, I was on it, and we talked about this. And then he asked me the same question about Station 12. And I said, if it were me, what I would be doing is I would have been calling WS every single month for the last 8 years, asking what you're going to do about it. I'm not a developer, but what I am is the town. And the town should be able to put pressure on these people to say, what are you doing? Where are you going with this? We got a rat-infested area over there. Those poor businesses all around it are suffering.
I didn't know that.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and here's the problem. Why are you not telling the people that you're talking to them? It's because you weren't. It's because you weren't having those conversations. That's the issue. If I got out every single month and I had a podcast and we told people this is what we did this week, or this is what we did this month, and let them know we were in touch with WS. We talked to Doug Jamal. These are the 3 meetings that we had. This is how you get in front of an issue. You tell people the truth. You let them know what you're doing, because if they don't like it, you'll know.
Well, I'll take an example of the doubles blizzards we had, was it 2 or 3 years ago at Christmas time? 4 days before my street was plowed.
It's right. I plowed my own street with my plow. I did it. I plowed it because there was a person next door who had a heart condition.
Oh boy. And
I got a call from his wife saying, Danny, could you just plow a path in case something happens to him? And we did it. Look, and it's not the highways department's fault. I'm not saying that. We got good people there. I talked to them. Good people. But if they don't have the equipment and they don't have the tools to do the job, what are we talking about
here? Or if a couple trucks break down.
Exactly right. This is what I don't understand. And look, this is just information that I'm finding out on the outside looking in. Could you imagine what I'm going to find out when I get in there?
You're going to be like, oh boy,
right,
there we go.
Right. But to that point, we're going to let everybody know. We're going to tell everybody what's going on. They're going to know what we find. They're going to know a solution. They're going to know what's going on. We are past the point of, we can't go back. We have to go forward. And look, when my business was hurting, we had to think of different things to do in order to bring more business in. You always have to reinvent yourself. You always have to go out and try to find out what the most efficient and best way to do things. Government's so different.
Well, we never knew that. I never knew that your business had a challenge.
Oh, sure, of course. After COVID, it was, and even before that, Don, remember, small businesses take a while, to get themselves
momentum.
Yes. COVID hit like a ton of bricks, but the government came in, they helped us out. Thank God for that. We stayed open and we were able to endure it, and our business became back stronger, but we used to have 5 or 6 places at that time before COVID. We now have 3. We became more efficient. We understood what our limitations were. We were able to spend more time with our families. We became better at what we do. That's what we have to do with government. We have to understand that it's not an open checkbook. We've got to watch. We have to do these things. So this is what I talk about when I talk about business acumen. You have to have it. 101 stuff. And I don't see it. I came here 14 years ago. My wife was born and raised here, and I thought this place. I lived in Lewiston, and I thought that Williamsville was Lewiston on steroids. I thought it was a phenomenal place. Building, things going crazy, things just going nuts. It's not like that anymore. It's not like that. It's different.
It is different.
It's a different place, and it's not the same feeling of success, accomplishment. It's hard now. It's a hard place to live because the taxes that have gone up, the money that we've spent. But see, I think that we're resilient people. We're smart people. Do you know how many people that are retired in Amherst who have offered their support to me, should I get in, to help? And I'm talking about professional people like lawyers and accountants and people who are in business that say, we'll help. They'll do it for nothing. Like, this is the pool of people we're talking about. This is what you want. This is what we need to do. Because ultimately, I have a problem thinking that, first of all, I can never do it alone. Never. Number two, you have to have people who believe in the cause, right? And I tend to believe that the residents out there, if you're honest with them, you tell them what you're going to do, they see what it's happening, and they see that you're doing things, and you show progress, they'll be behind you.
I agree, 100%.
And you've been in the business, so you have seen. How many things have you seen? And how many of these stories have you done? And how many political campaigns have you gone through?
Tons.
Right? So you see this more than I do.
But what I want to say is that the people of Western New York, including in the town of Amherst, are very generous. Look at when someone has a tragedy happen to their family, how the GoFundMes are very successful. For years, the Catholic Charities campaign was called the Drive That Never Fails. And people will give in this town if you prove to them there's a reason to give, because they have big hearts and they feel compassion for people who are going through a suffering and pain. And there's no other place I would rather live. I moved out of here when Channel 7 was sold and new owners came in. I went to California for a year and a half, and I loved it out there. But I miss Buffalo. I miss my friends. I miss my doctors. I miss the camaraderie we have. You know, you walk into a restaurant here in Western New York, and there's always someone saying, "Hey, Danny, how you doing? Good to see you, pal."
Right.
You know, and in many communities you don't have that. We still have friends out there. We still get Christmas cards from a few people, and we send Christmas cards to a few people. But I think the spirit of Western New York and in the town of Amherst is second to none. But man, have we developed problems for ourselves. And we got to get rid of these problems, and I think you're the man to come up with a solution.
I appreciate that, and I want to say something, because it's a great segue into what I think is important too. There's a lot of issues we have, but we also have to be able to educate the population on the good stuff, like you just said, Don. There's not enough of that goes out there. The stuff that we're doing for people, whether we fix a sidewalk or we do that. I think that there's a lack of communication that says, of the good stuff that we've done, as well as the things that we have to get through. You don't hear about that. All you hear about, and you know this being in the news, it's always the bad stuff. It's not the good stuff. We got to change that.
Well, that's because the bad stuff attracts viewers and the good stuff does not.
That's right.
I do tip my hat to NBC Nightly News. They end their newscast every night. There is some good news tonight, and they have a positive story. I think that's smart.
Yeah.
And sometimes the story is so impactful, it brings a tear to your eye.
Right.
You know, you see a little kid having heart trouble, or amazing hot air balloon that's going awry, and they are able to save the people. I mean, there's good news out there. There's no doubt about it. And there's a lot of good people that live in this town. A lot of good people.
And I want to say something about this podcast. This is the first podcast that we have, but our format's going to be pretty simple. We're going to be able to talk about the current issues that are out there, some national issues. We're going to talk about the positive things, because nobody's doing that. Nobody's doing that stuff. And I think that there's a lack of it. And we need to make sure that we're out there doing these types of things, bringing the people in to talk to them about the positive and the bad stuff too, because that's how we get better. But you can't be afraid to talk about it.
Well, let's talk about some of that stuff. For example, the potholes. They drive me nuts. And it's not just Amherst, it's Buffalo, it's all of Western New York. It's a sign of spring. But I don't see the crews out there patching them up.
I don't know if we have enough crews. That's one of the things. I spoke to some highway people, and they said they need more people. We need to get the right equipment to be able to do this stuff faster for them. This is the problem with being on the outside in, right? What is the schedule? what's going on. Maybe we need to convey this to the residents. Say, okay, look, here's the pothole crew, and this is how many they're doing every day. They don't do that. Say what, if we have a limitation, let's not go spend $11 million on a park. Let's take some of that money and buy them another truck so they can get all the potholes done, right? This is the kind of stuff that I'm curious to see what I'm going to find when I get in there. What is that plan? Talk to the highway department and say, we're giving you all this money. Tell me your plan. What's your plan?
Yeah, I think that would be great if they came out, let's say, on a Sunday night or Monday morning and said, this week, these are the following streets that we're going to fix. You might have a little delay.
That's right.
Down to one lane while we do this, but we're going to improve it. You recently cut the ribbon on the brand new Amherst Republican Party headquarters, and I turned to my wife and I chuckled going down Hopkins, all the Gagliardo signs I saw. I mean, every other yard had a sign. And then we had to take a left on Maple and bum bum, bum bum, bum bum.
Right.
And for years, Maple Road has been a problem. It's a county road. Pulling Cars knows it's a problem, but he hasn't done anything to fix it.
Why? Okay, so let's take that point. What are they doing about it? What is Brian Kelpa telling the residents about what you're doing about it? Have you asked Mark? What's Mark's plan? What if Mark says, I don't want to do it? I'm going to tell residents that Mark doesn't want to do it. I'm going to let them know the truth. That's the problem that we have today. People have genuine concerns. Just answer them. And if you can't answer them, I'll tell you a real quick story. I was one of my first jobs. I was working in Niagara Falls for a company, and it was a sales job. And they asked me, my immediate supervisor was the sales director, and he said, I'm going to give you some advice. Whenever you're talking to somebody, if you don't know the answer, tell them you don't know it.
Yeah.
And you'll get the information for them. Okay? I would rather hear that Mark can't do it because there's no money in the budget. So I can go back and say there's no money in the budget. So we can keep asking the same question. When are you going to do something? And we'll get it done. It's just like the smell we talked about at the wastewater treatment plant. Kathy Hochul is our governor from this area. We need a new wastewater treatment plant. Why are we not in her ear all the time saying, we need money, we need money, we need money? She's the one who can give it to us.
Well, she's drinking the downstate Kool-Aid.
That's right. That's right. And the problem is that she panders.
She does pander, and I don't think people here in Western New York realize how much money she gives to the New York City subway system,
That's right.
for example.
That's right.
And whatever they ask, they get. And whatever our NFTA asks for, we don't get.
Right.
You know, so that's where the votes are for the Democrats, New York City metro area. And she's paying more attention to them than she is to the people here in Western New York.
You know, you just struck an idea, a thought. If I'm getting in this job, worried about my next 4 years, it's a mistake. You need to get this job, worry about the first 4, and then worry about the second 4.
You know, if you get this job, and I think you will, you're going to inherit a lot of headaches.
Oh yes. But you know, I have to tell you, we're assembling an amazing team, Don. I'm telling you. The people that are out there that are supporting us and helping us and want to work. And this is Democrats, Republicans, Blanks, Conservatives. It's not just one party. Everybody wants to help. Everybody wants the solutions to these problems. They just need leadership in there that's going to make sure they build a consensus to get it done. So you're right. This is not going to be easy. It's going to be difficult.
It is going to be difficult.
But again, assembling the right team is the secret.
And having the community behind you.
Right.
You know, I think without even knowing where you live, I can guarantee you have a great relationship with your neighbors.
We do.
That's Western New York, that's Buffalo, that's Amherst. And neighbor helping neighbor. I mean, just look at the different blizzards that we survived together, making sure everyone's okay, checking in on the elderly. You see it all the time. And it's what makes us a little bit different than other parts of the country is that we care for each other. And I think that is an attribute that should be highlighted more, and people should be praised for doing all the good deeds that they do.
You pointed it out that we all come together. We're good about that. And I think this is a general consensus amongst people. I think inherently we want to help people.
I am a big fan of people who show acts of generosity and acts of kindness to other people. And I think it's important that someone who goes the extra mile should be rewarded for their good deeds. And that's what makes us a great place to live.
And that's the sad part about the news now, because they don't do enough of that.
Right.
This is why these podcasts are great, because we can get snippets of information out there to let people know these things. This is why they've become so popular. This is why more people are doing it. Look at the newscasters that have left CNN, Fox. They're doing their own thing again, by themselves, doing their podcast, because they're able to talk like we're talking now. How many times have you had to worry about a 3-minute soundbite to get as much information as you possibly can? How often do you are able to talk for an hour and have a conversation about things?
I haven't had a 3-minute soundbite in 10 years. It's more like a 30-second soundbite.
Okay, yeah, that's
and
right.
You got to boil it down. It's hard. Interesting to note that ABC, Disney, reported that the ABC television network, the owned and operated stations, that would be WABC in New York, WLS Chicago, KABC in LA, they had a 13% drop in revenue. And that is because people in broadcasting are predicting the death of linear television as you and I know it now, as we grew up with ABC, NBC, CBS, and then cable channels. It's because people like streaming and they like podcasts, and that's what viewers are going through. And plus the iPhone helps people to get news on the minute. A big fan of Western New York was Loretta Swit, Hot Lips Houlihan on MASH. She recently died in New York City at the age of 87, a wonderful woman in many, many ways. She would come up here, I emceed the Pulaski Day Parade, and she would be part of the guests. And she was remarkable, and she said one time, when John F. Kennedy ran for president, he came to Buffalo at Niagara Square for the General Pulaski Parade. There was 250,000 people who turned out to see him. And she said, where are all the Polish Americans here in Western New York today? We had like 20,000 people, but she said, these streets should be lined 5 people deep to embrace and cherish our Polish heritage. I'm not Polish, but I've been to Poland 11 times, and I embrace the people of Western New York who are what they call Polonia, people of Polish descent who don't live in Poland. And they are remarkable people. I've been with so many people from Western New York overseas. When Anne Odre was shot with Pope John Paul II, we were over in Rome, and we got the only hospital bedside interview with her and what it was like. And the following year, the Pope felt so bad that she had to suffer pain for a bullet that was intended for him. She invited her back to the Vatican, and she took me to meet the Pope. And I mean, I would never have that possibility again. It's the same feeling I had when I walked up 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue for the first time when Richard Nixon was president. I'm in the press room, and I go, geez, little Donnie Postles from 1064 Winona Boulevard in Arundecoit, New York is here at the White House. And when Nixon walked in, I was so mesmerized that I forgot to hit play and record on the tape recorder. And thank God Sam Donaldson was there, and I worked for him behind the scenes when I was at ABC News, and he said, I'll make you a dub. So I didn't lose anything, but it was moments that you cherish in your life. But to me, living in Western New York is a gift. And I want to make sure that I can do something to improve our community. Every opportunity I have to give back, I do. And so do so many people, and I know you're giving back now. You're running for a job that I personally wouldn't want. It's tough.
Well, let's be honest now, Don. You were considering it.
Well, they approached me and asked me. I didn't approach them. They approached me, and it took my wife 2 minutes to say, you're not going to do it.
Well,
Mike Stacy said, you're going to do it.
And I want to tell you that thank you, Don, for not doing it, because...
Well, name recognition has a lot to do with it, Dan, but it's more than just name recognition. When you get in there, you're going to have some amazing challenges, and you're going to have some tough decisions to make. It's easy for us to sit here and pontificate of what we would do, but it's another thing when the tire meets the road, when the rubber meets the road, what are you going to do to improve the quality of life for the residents and at the same time find a way to save money? You've got union contracts to contend with. You've got people who rely on the town for employment. This is one area of Western New York where your biggest employer is from the public sector, the University of Buffalo. And what we need is to find a way to develop more private sector jobs.
Right. And you know, I was going to, I think that we need to be talking to UB, seeing what's going on and how we could work. That's why that Autobahn area is very, very good for them. They want more land. They want to do more things. And I think it's an opportunity. But I want to ask you a couple questions. questions.
Okay.
Now, tell me, what is it that you think after this many years, how do you get the people involved? What would you do in order to get people more involved in the things that are happening in the community?
I think there's a lot of voter apathy out there. Okay, I really do. I don't think the people are aware of the issues, the things that you're bringing up that I wasn't even aware of as a newsman. I've covered the town board on so many times. But I think if you have this transparency that you're talking about, and if you start your week, hey folks, this is what we're doing, this is what's on the agenda for the town. I don't even know what's on the town agenda. Sometimes you go to a meeting, you get an agenda like this, you go, well, that's not of interest as a newsman. Oh, well, here's a big one. They're going to talk about what they're going to do for the town highway department with more snow plowing equipment. People care about that, okay? Mm-hmm. They don't want to know about how the union contracts are being negotiated because I've never had anyone tell me how they're being negotiated. I don't even know I haven't seen the police contract ever in my 42 years in Buffalo.
And maybe that's the case too. I think that we talk about these podcasts. I think that we have to establish that type of information to the people and make it accessible. And maybe that's something that we do. We look at the agenda and say, these are the most important things. These are the things to be looking out for. Don, I think that if you look at your career and you look at what we're trying to do, that is exactly what we have to do, is get people who've been here, who understand how the public works, what they like and what they don't like, and not be afraid to acknowledge these things and tell people these things, like bring it out so people understand it. Don, if linear TV is going away, people still have to get information.
Absolutely.
So we have to figure out how to get them that information, and maybe it's this, and maybe it's more of that. I could see us having this on our social media pages and doing all that stuff, and we hit it just right, where people are like, oh, I'm looking forward to the next subject. This is why Bella Via is so successful, because he talks about the issues that are happening right there. But does anybody really drill down and really take a look at what's going on in their town and be able to have this type of information? I don't think so.
I think you're right. And Bella Via, he's a war hero. Mm-hmm. And I've been with him when I was doing, it was called Teeing It Up for the Troops. It was a golf tournament at Wanaka. And I played with veterans who have artificial limbs. And he gave a speech about what it's like to fight for our country. I got teary-eyed because we take our freedom for granted. And it takes a lot. And I think sometimes we take our town services for granted. If we got a snowstorm, I want to make sure the plow comes down and I can get out of my driveway, mm-hmm. right? And back in the blizzard of 77, by the way, that was my first winter here, and on my job interview on April Fool's Day, 1976, I said, what about your winters here? It's blown out of proportion. I said, oh yeah? And I said, well, last year you had an ice storm in 75, and I said, for 2 weeks the power was out, and Bob Cleary, Sr., ran the Niagara Mohawk, and he said, I feel so sorry for people losing their food in their fridge. Let's go around and give people dry ice. And someone said, Bob, that's not practical, okay? Well, anyway, the blizzard of 77 hit on a Friday. I was at Channel 7, and Dave Thomas was on Dialing for Dollars, AM Buffalo. And they opened up the garage door where they do the weather outside, and the snow was about a foot deep. It was at 10 o'clock. By noon, it was 3 feet deep. And by 5 o'clock, people were calling in, I can't get into work. The only one who got in, by golly, Irv Weinstein made it in. And we stayed there and get him on the 11 o'clock news. We had speed phones back in those days. And 01 was the mayor's office. And I called, I love him, God bless him, Stan Mikowski. I said, hey, Stash, I said, what are you doing about the blizzard? He goes, Don, we're paralyzed. I said, activate the National Guard. He goes, how do I do that? And I said, well, you have to call Governor Hugh Carey, and he activates the National Guard. Well, we're broke. The city of Buffalo was broke back then like they are now. And he says, I can't afford it. I said, Mayor, the governor, the state will pick up the tab and he'll activate the National Guard. And the next day, Hugh Carey activated the National Guard and the big dig out began. We didn't have the communication system. There were no iPhones back then. The trucks had two-way radios. In the blizzard of 85, I made it over to the Broadway Barns on a snowmobile with my photographer. And I get inside, and who was there? Jimmy Griffin. And Jimmy Griffin was on the microphone telling the drivers where to go. And it was, believe it or not, Pat Lucy Sr., after the blizzard of '77, who developed a handbook on how to handle blizzards for every municipality in Western New York. And the way you do it is, the first thing you do is you plow out the hospitals and the emergency roads leading up to a hospital so people can get there. Someone having a heart attack, for example.
Makes sense.
And then you make sure you get around the hydrants and the police department, make sure they have a egress and a way to get in and out. And then you get to the residential streets. And Jimmy Griffin in Blizzard of '85 was crucified for plowing out the parking lots at the Catholic churches in South Buffalo, St. Tommy's and what have you. And he goes, well, wait a minute. He says, I have to have a place to put those the cars that we're towing that are marooned in the streets. Where am I going to put them so the plows can get down? So I put them in the church parking lots. And on the side, thank you, Father, you can have Mass this Sunday. And that's a true story. That's the kind of guy Jimmy Griffin was, and I love him to death. You know, when he ran, I went to New Hampshire with him when he ran for president. I'm in Manchester, New Hampshire with Jimmy Griffin saying, hi, I'm Jimmy Griffin, mayor of Buffalo, New York, and I'm running for president. He was a character. He always ran that I'm one vote short of winning. One vote. And that helped him to campaign even harder every day, like you're doing, going door to door right now for all the residents in Western New York. My wife tells me, and I did not realize that you came to our house and left a flyer. And I said, geez, I wish I would have been home to see Dan. I would have invited him in for lunch, better than breakfast. But keep up the good work.
Thanks. I really appreciate it. I want everybody to know that you're going to see more of these podcasts. We're going to be doing more of them. And this is our first one. And it's the Don and Dan podcast. You'll start to see it increase, and you'll be seeing these snippets going forward.
It's basically the political gospel according to Dan.
Yeah. I want to thank you. I want to thank you for being here and for launching this. And we want you to have a great day.